A number of companies yesterday posted huge numbers for the first 6 months of the year, with British Gas seeing their profits rise nearly 10 times. So now they're making just under £1 billion. And they say that half of that, 500 million, is down to the price cap. So critics branded the figures obscene and sickening. MPs said the profits amounted to daylight robbery. There were also renewed calls for an additional windfall tax or even nationalisation. The regulator Ofgem and the boss of Centrica, which is the parent company of British Gas, both said bumper profits were a one-off to make up for previous losses, and they would drop significantly. So we're all today, we see these figures, right? And we ask the question, how much? That's what everyone's saying. How much? The profits on this gas and oil. If you're a customer, put your sunglasses on. I'm going to break it to you. And we'll see how the costs and the profits are made between digging it out of the sea and getting it into your home. This is British Gas. And here's the bar. 98 million in the first 6 months of last year. This year, 969. That's why I said 10 times. And that's just 6 months. That's £1 billion they made in 6 months. That's the red bar. And bear in mind, they are digging it as well as selling it. So they've got control of the process. The Ofgem price cap is a big part of this, because what happened was that the price cap went up. As a result of that, the profits went up. The government then steps in with this line here, the energy price guarantee. So what they did, they said, OK, we know the prices are going up, but we will pay the difference to make sure people don't get bankrupted by it. But it's still all profits. And I'll show you just, if we look at one more company here. Yes, so you can very well say how much here. If we look at one more company in a second, this is the graph here for the profits on gas and electricity. And I'm showing you just the incline. It's coming down now. Look at how steep that is. So I'll look at EDF. Last year, 740 million in profit. First 6 months, bear in mind. This year, how much? What? Look, it's nearly 2 billion, Debbie.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It blows your mind.
It does blow your mind. And they're saying they had to recoup their losses, but they've recouped them 1 million times.
And it's a very complicated thing, this, Wilfred.
It is so complicated.
Because they are, if you drill it and sell it to people's homes, you're going to make a ton of money.
Yeah.
And basically, because there's a world market, if we won't pay the prices they can charge elsewhere, we won't get the oil and gas.
But the problem you got is this, is that I'm against nationalising anything. But when you start to see numbers like this, and the ordinary people are suffering in this cost of living crisis, you start to think, this is so obscene that surely they must be finding a way of how the public will be getting some of this money back.
Well, so, OK, I know there's a kind of windfall tax at the moment, so the government will say they've got one. But the simple thing is to say to EDF, all right, listen, guys, you can't make 2 billion in 6 months. So we want to take 1.5 billion off you, and you can call it daylight robbery. We don't care. We're the government. Could you do that?
I don't know. Could you?
Well, I think you probably could. Just say hand it over.
Well, I don't know what you can do, but actually something should be done. I'm not clever enough to know what it is.
Well, how about if we all stop paying our bills? How about if everybody in the country stopped?
Well, I tell you, we've mentioned this before. A guy in my street didn't pay his gas bill, and he then got a reminder, but for some reason the reminder was lost. And the next thing is he got the proper thing saying, you are being cut off tomorrow. Signed, William Orr, British Gas. Significance of that, he is William Orr.
Oh, right.
So he's the executive at British Gas whose signature was on the letter to cut off his own house. That's how brutal they are. He's got it framed on his living room wall, right? So they even threaten to cut off people on their own board.
Yeah.
So that's what will happen to us.
Well,
if we don't pay, we'll get cut off.
But then that's why I agree that we should be nationalised, because, you know, when we lost the railways, you know, didn't you love going on British Rail? I did.
No, it was appalling.
It was late, and the sandwiches were terrible.
No,
but it might be
is
better.
Is it any better now?
Well, look at Avanti. I mean, there's an example.
It's serious. No, it
can't be
the
worse.
argument about nationalisation really hits the floor, because I'm old enough to remember what a terrible experience it was with British Rail.
Well, trains did arrive occasionally. just not. There were some trains. Yeah.
Perhaps I was a little girl and didn't remember, but I remember the night. It was nice. It was nice to travel on a train.
All right, I'm going to bring somebody in, okay, just because we're going to hear the perspective from, why it's okay for these profits to be made. Let's speak to Reem Ibrahim from the Institute of Economic Affairs. Reem, welcome. You believe this is the market working, is that right?
Well, it is, and unfortunately, the energy price guarantee had already messed with the price mechanism. But I think, what I've been hearing from this earlier discussion is entirely absurd. This idea that somehow profit is a bad thing, that we should be upset that British companies are making profits. I think that's absurd, first of all. Secondly, this idea that we can somehow get the government to come in and say, actually, I'm just going to take away those profits from these British companies. Do we live in the Soviet Union, for goodness sake? This is not how we work. This is not how a market operates. These companies are able to make a profit because the government had already capped the energy price guarantee, which effectively meant that the price mechanism was already being messed with. We should be proud of the fact that these companies are making money. And also remember that if we are to take away their profits and we are to take away and disincentivize them even further, then we are actually going to be disincentivizing investment. We need money in energy, and unfortunately, I think it's really ridiculous that we're having these kind of conversations where we're even considering taking away a company's profits.
Can I just explain something to us? It sounds as if the energy price guarantee or the price cap worked in the opposite way intended, because what it did was it locked prices in quite high. Yeah. And then they made more profits than they should have. Is that right?
Not quite. What the energy price guarantee did do was it effectively subsidised everyone's energy bills. So people like Rishi Sunak, who are incredibly wealthy, also had his energy bill subsidised by the average taxpayer. I think that's unfair, which is why I didn't support the energy price guarantee in the first place. But it also meant that people didn't reduce consumption. Energy bills, didn't rise significantly after the sort of shortage of energy last year, which effectively meant that people weren't that information wasn't being translated to the consumer. People weren't using less energy than they were because there wasn't a huge change in energy bills.
Got it. Okay.
Now what that meant that middle class people were able to heat their swimming pools despite the fact that we had an energy shortage.
Okay, listen, stay with us because I think some callers might want to take issue with what you said.